Hi, everyone. This is Dee, your favorite self love and mindset coach. Welcome back to another episode of Eternal Evolution of Self. I have another amazing guest with me today. This is Jenn, and I'm going to let her tell you a little bit about herself this morning.
Thanks so much, Dee. First of all, I love the title of your podcast. The evolution of self is something that I have been doing for the last 12, 13 years now, and I continue to do every single day. I am a lifestyle recovery coach. For those of you that aren't familiar with the term lifestyle recovery, I came up with that title for my business. My business is Lifestyle Recovery Solutions because I have my own past with recovery, addiction, homelessness. I've been to prison twice. I was in and out of jail, mental hospitals. As I said, I was homeless. I was IV addicted to IV drugs. Anything that would break down, anything that would help me escape, anything that would help numb me and help disconnect me. And throughout my colorful journey, the one common denominator was the disconnection. It was the inability to be okay in my own skin. It was the people pleasing. It was the needing to be whatever you needed me to be so that you would accept me and so that I could fit in. And it just led me down some paths that I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy, because when you're a giver, givers naturally attract takers. It's just the law of the universe. And when there are no energetic boundaries around your gifting, around your love, around your energy, right? Then when there are no boundaries around that, when you don't feel the worth, when you don't feel worthy enough of standing on your own without the acceptance of others, you are willing to compromise who you are, who you truly are, and you're never ever going to be in alignment with who you're meant to be, or the people who you're meant to be in alignment with. And so it really has been a mission of mine to help people understand that it isn't about the drugs, it isn't about the alcohol, it isn't about the sex or Netflix or social media or food, which is a
Right.
huge one, right?
Yes.
It's about the lifestyle that you're living. It's about the disconnection. It's about your inability to connect with self, the highest conscious self, and what that wants for you in your life.
Yeah.
And unless we can connect to that, we are never going to be able to live an authentic life. And in my opinion, from the work that I've done, I truly believe the only path to personal freedom is authenticity.
Yes. I agree with you.
The ability to be who you are, live your life, and do it in a way that where you aren't afraid of or catering to what other people think.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so true. And we put such value on what other people think, and we live our lives by that. So when did you realize and how did you realize that you were in a state of disconnection?
Well, I was sitting in my jail cell, arrested after I was being held on a parole violation because I had just gotten out of prison and was on parole. And I was looking at, I don't know, 6 or 7 years. And I had this moment where, so little backstory, I took my drugs in with me when I got arrested. And, if people are listening and they're like, well, how, right? Think tampon. And, and I was able to sell what I needed to get stuff that I needed, like shampoo, soap, snacks, toiletries, things of that nature, and phone calls, things like that, and paper, pencils, whatever I needed. And then I was able to share the rest and do the rest to kind of wean myself off. And the problem was it eventually ran out and I had to exist. And I was starting to exist again and I was starting to be present again. And I was not okay with that. And so I grabbed the needle that I still had, the empty needle, and I started pushing and pulling blood into the syringe just to try and get whatever was left, I guess, from the barrel, but also just to escape, right? The idea of escape was so just everything to me. And so then the next thing I know, I am looking at myself. I'm looking at myself and I'm looking at this girl who is barely existing, She's gone and her eyes are sunken in, her face is sunken in. She's 110 pounds soaking wet. And she's got bruises and scars all over her body. She is bleeding. She is dying right in front of my eyes. And I just had this overwhelming sense of like despair and sadness and grief. And I was realizing, like, at that moment, like what was happening. And as I was realizing what was happening, right, I was back in my body. I could feel all the pain. I could feel all the angst. I could feel all the feelings that I had when I was staring at myself. Now, I had never been disconnected. I'd never disassociated before. I had never had a point in my life ever where I was able to actually look at myself as I am right now, the way I really am. And that moment did that for me. And when I was back in my body, right? Like there was this weird, like, okay, I digress again, right? The night before that, my bunkie and I had gotten into a fight. Okay. So I got to lay the line for this. So my bunkie and I got in a fight. Some words were said. I was coming down. I was, like I said, not in a good place. And so I said some things and I spit on her. And she picked me up off my bunk, threw me across the cell, and then threw a Bible at me and said, "You need God, bitch."
Wow.
And I picked up the Bible and threw it in my cubby and jumped up on my cell, cussing her out the whole way and MFing everybody, and fell asleep, passed out probably a couple days. And that's when I woke up a few days later, looked out, everybody was in the day room. I was by myself in the cell. I went up, grabbed my needle, tried to see if I could get anything out of it. There was nothing there. And then all of a sudden I saw myself and I was like, oh my God, what is happening? What is like, right? Like that just, oh, Jenn,
Yeah.
right? Desperation. Like what, like, I mean, can you imagine seeing anything that you love at all in that state, like completely out of her mind and psychosis, right? And so I'm back in my body, and then I look up and I see that stupid Bible, right? I see that Bible and I get up and I grab it, don't know why, right? And I open it up and it says, "Gird up the loins of your mind and be sober and rest in the assurance that your faith in God will restore you to sanity." And I don't know if those are the exact words. That's how I remember it. That's what my
Yeah.
body and my soul took in. That's when I realized I was not alone, that there was something out there trying to speak to me. And maybe it was that version of myself that was sitting in that corner, that was
Yeah.
looking at me going, "Hey girl, this ain't it. What did you
Right.
do? This is not it. Where are
Yeah.
you? Why have you, why is it the first time you're seeing me?" Kind of feeling, right? And for me, like, I'm not a religious person, and I don't consider myself any religion, but I will say that I absolutely follow spirit, that I absolutely believe 100% that God, whatever you want to call it, is energy, is source, is something that if we're disconnected from, we will never align with. Right. And so what I realized in that moment, right, just from these words in this book that somehow I had been drawn to, okay, uh, I realized I'm not alone. Like, I'm still here, whether we fucking like it or not, Jenn. We're
Yeah.
still here.
Right.
What are you gonna do about it? Now what?
Now what?
Now what?
Yeah.
And all this, and I just burst into tears. I just burst into tears, hyperventilating, sobbing, crying. I still get chills to this day
Yeah.
because it was that I knew that was like, this wasn't it. You were right. This wasn't it. Because my
Right.
whole life I felt like, this can't be, this cannot be it. Like, what
Right.
is the point of this? My entire life up until this point, I think I'm 25 or 25 at this time. And 24. Anyway, and I just knew that there was something different that I was about to experience, because I had to figure it out, why I was still here. I had to figure out why I was in this moment. And from then on, I've really tried to stay from that very moment. I've tried to, and it hasn't always been an easy road. I'd love to say all of a sudden I was this like A+ human, right? I just wasn't. I still had no coping skills. I still had no idea who I was. I still had no idea what direction I was going or what I wanted. And so I set out on this path, and I spent the next 17 and a half months in prison. I did fight my case. I was able to get a program after, which is, I told them, I said, "Look, I just got out of prison a little over 2 months ago, and I was worse when I got out than when I went in. I don't need to be housed with their thieves and murderers. I need help,
Right.
because I don't know how to do life. And prison's not helping me figure that out." So they
Right.
gave me a 6-month mandatory program at the end of it, and I had to go. I was still a ward of the state at the end of, up until they released me from that program. So 17 and a half months. There's some stories in there that I could save for another day. Like, I got back into drugs when I was in prison. I was bringing drugs into the prison because they had lost me in the system. So I didn't know when I was ever going to get out. I didn't know it was a bad situation. Got a girlfriend, did the whole thing. And then I got a dirty test, and they extended my sentence 90 days plus half time. So 45 extra days, and took away my visits, took away my boxes, took away all of my everything. And so I got to make a decision, and I actually got clean in prison.
Wow.
So 7/16/10, I was still locked up in CIW in California, and I made a decision to get clean, and I did. And I still use recreational, like, like I use THC. I do have drinks. Like I am not clean and sober, but what I am is not disconnected.
Right.
What I am is connected to that conscious version of myself. What I am is uncomfortable when I start to disconnect,
Hmm.
especially if it's not on purpose. I have learned how to purposely disconnect. And if I am going to choose to go sit and eat snacks and watch Netflix, I'm choosing that consciously, knowing that I have done all the other things that I need to do to take care of self. I've gone to the gym, or I've gone for a walk, or I've eaten 80% clean food that day. I've eaten at least 2 or 3 of my nutritional meals. So my body's getting what it needs. So that way it's not just right. Like I've learned myself and I've paid
Yeah.
attention long enough, and I keep paying attention. And you and I were joking about this. It's like, I speak with my clients and I'm like, oh, we developed the art of noticing when I'm on like socials and reels and stuff like that. But the truth is, when I'm with my clients, I'm like, girl, pay attention.
Yeah.
Pay attention. What does it look like right now in your health? What is going on? What are you doing actively to focus on your health? What are you doing? What are you doing to not actively focus on your health? Like, what are you doing to
Right.
deter your health? Because it's either going to be neurodegenerate, like it's either going to break your brain down or it's going to build your brain up. It's going to break your body down or build your body up. There's only two choices there.
Right.
And if you're choosing to do nothing, then it's breaking you down, and that's a choice too.
Right.
And so it's like, I'm paying attention, right? I'm paying attention. And I think that that's something that I don't even remember. You're quite, oh, where was like, I just started paying attention. That
Hmm.
was the moment.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, like I was actually like, oh shit, this is what we're doing. Okay, well,
Right.
it's not working.
Yeah.
Right. So what is working, what's not? And I started asking myself that. And I started learning how to honor my yeses and my nos. And I started learning how to be honest with myself about whether those
Oh,
were my yeses or my nos or not. And then I
right.
started to find ways to hold myself accountable, not just to who I was, not just to other people, right? That was the thing, was like I was in NA, I was in AA, I was in the anonymous programs, and what I will identify is with CODA, right? Codependence Anonymous, because I am absolutely, my lifestyle was codependency. I needed to be needed or I wasn't worthy.
Yeah.
What did I matter? I'm nothing. And that's why I have a problem with some religions, because I'm like, the fuck, you are nothing. You
Right.
are everything.
I agree with
Do you have
you.
any idea the energy that you could have inside you if you choose to take that on? Like,
Yeah.
what is the energy that you're carrying? Who are you showing up in this world as? Is it as a victim? Is it as worthless? Is it as powerless? Because I'm not that. That's not my vibe. So if
Right.
you want to get up here on my vibe, like, come on, let's go. Because I'm connected with conscious self.
Hmm.
And at times the highest conscious self, sometimes a little bit lower, right? Like I'm not always in the best freaking vibes. I'm
Right.
not always in this high frequency, right?
Yeah.
It is right, but it's better than right now. Allowing myself to have these ebbs and flows, I'm able to feel the good and the bad, and I'm
Mhm.
able to find a level place at times. Whereas when I was either just psycho as a kid, right? Nuts, completely bipolar, completely all over the place, OCD, ADHD, right? Like all the things, right? Like you have all the things. I was not diagnosed as a child, so I cannot say that. I wasn't diagnosed until my teens, when I was diagnosed with first manic depression and bipolar. And then I was eventually diagnosed schizoaffective from drugs and was 5250'd in a mental health facility for 2 weeks, 10 days, and put on tons of psych meds.
Mm.
And it wasn't until I got off those psych meds that I was able to learn how to actually feel those ebbs and flows, because
Right.
I instead was either nothing or literally ball bouncing from ground to floor. And the only reason there was ever a roof, a ceiling, or a floor was because either I was in prison or because I was, like, right, like there was no real cap for that. Like, so it really was this, it's really just been this journey. Honestly, I could like squirrel off in so many different directions around this, but
It's you have an incredible story, and like I told you before we started recording, stories like this to me are so interesting and inspirational because you're in this dark place and then you find your way to the light. And to me, that is real transformation. And I love that you're brave and sharing your story so that you can inspire other people and instill hope, because I think so many people don't have that. And as you were talking rather about the ebb and flow that you go through, we all do that. And sometimes I say to people, we have to be gentle with ourselves and realize that even without all of this external stuff, there's ebbs and flows. So if you take out all of the stimuli in your life, some days you wake up and you feel like you can take on the world. And then other days you wake up and you can't handle anything. Like a butterfly can fly by and it just makes you break down, you know? So that just natural, what I refer to as the human factor, is just an innate part of us without all the other stuff. You know, so when you add in all the other stuff, these ebbs and flows that are kind of like this end up being bigger ebbs and flows. So, but we have to give ourselves grace and realize that that's a real part of life. You know, we are human. We're going to have days where we feel like we can conquer it all. And then there's days we're going to have to sit back and allow ourselves to notice, like you said, and pay attention and reconnect with ourselves. So I think that's a very powerful point.
Absolutely. It's really, that's the first piece, right? Is connection. I
Yeah.
think before we can make any transformation, we have to connect. And,
Mhm.
when I was in that rehab there, again, I was still on meds when I got out of prison. And the thing is they would have med lines in prison. So you were 100% like guaranteed that's, you had to go to meds. It was a thing, right? And then when you're in rehab, right, it's a little more lax. And so if you accidentally slept in the morning, they wouldn't go and open the door for you because that was their consequence. And so you had to wait for your next pill call at noon. Well, the problem was I was on so many meds that by doing that to me, I would end up sick on the couch in front of the door, half hour before med call, uh, because I was already detoxing. And I just knew that I wasn't getting, like, this is not why I quit doing drugs, is to feel like this.
Right.
Right. And I think that there's something behind the fact that there wasn't all the stressors as much as there were in prison, right? Anymore in this rehab situation. And so I feel like all of a sudden the meds really were way too much. And I really felt it, maybe more. And I'm not a doctor or a medical professional, so I can't speak to that, but I do feel like it works the same as pain meds in the sense if you have pain, if you actually have pain and you take pain meds, you don't feel out of your mind. But if you
Right.
don't have pain and you take pain meds, you feel out of your mind, right? Because there's no pain receptors to like go to. Anyway, so I'm feeling this way. I'm like, I got to get off this stuff. I end up talking to my psych. Long story short, I end up off these meds and I'm detoxing off slowly, right? They're weaning me. And so, or I'm weaning myself, but we're not going to talk about that. And I'm coming out of my skin, and I'm having to feel all the feels and I'm not knowing how to deal with them. And there, really is no way for me to process this stuff as it comes up. And so I just had all this nervous energy and there was this old treadmill in the rec room. And so I started getting on this treadmill and it stunk like cat pee because of burnt rubber, right? And then it was loud and screechy. I don't know if you've ever been on an old, loud, screechy treadmill, but it's
I haven't.
like at the top of like the worst alarm ever. And these girls are in there, there's tons of women. The house held 60 women and 11 children.
Wow.
And so at the end of the day, if they weren't at work or something like that, and they were here, they were all in the rec room, making their phone calls, watching their shows, writing their letters, playing their games. And they did not want to be hearing me on that treadmill. And so it was the first time I really had to fight for something because I instinctively knew that it was what I needed.
Hmm.
Right. And so I feel like when it came to, so in the beginning, I thought fitness was saving my life, and I feel like it did.
Hmm.
Right. I feel like that was the piece that, like, really I had to connect to my mind and my body and my
Yeah.
spirit. Like, that was the body piece. Right. And I was like,
Yes.
finally, and not only that, letting go of all that nervous energy and that negative energy and like the stored energy and stored trauma in my body. It needed a way to be removed. And the only way I could do that at the time, and I didn't know anything about this back then, right? Back then I'm flailing for air, right?
Yeah.
Here now I know, like, it was the very beginning of my functional medicine journey,
Yeah.
right? That I was healing with functional medicine instead and functional fitness instead of pharmaceutical.
Right. It gave you a healthy focus, a healthy
Mhm.
outlet. So that's amazing that that was there and that you were wise enough inside of this chaotic mind that you had to find that singular focus that you could put your attention on. That's amazing.
to this day, I struggle, right? Like right now, that's why it's difficult for me sometimes during interviews. And I'm grateful for free flow interviews because I will squirrel off. I won't even remember what you asked me, like this last question. No clue. Had no idea, but tried to make a point out of it anyway, because it's like, really, I'm just here to share my story. I'm here to add value. I'm here to kind of like be an example of what it looks like when you absolutely have no belief in yourself. No, you're completely disconnected. There's absolutely no way that you think that you could get anywhere close to successful in life and having even any clue what success even really looked like or meant, to actually having it, having my own, now having my own idea of what success is and having a completely different vision of what success is compared to most people, and being okay with that, and being able to serve in the way that I want to serve, and being able to say that I own my own home, to be able to say that I make six figures, to be able to say, that I get to travel for the work I do, that I'm a best-selling author, that I'm an award-winning speaker. Like, I never in a million years, I would have like choked, died laughing at you if you'd come at me when I was in rehab
Yes.
in that place, and it was like these baby steps though that we teach, that we talk about, that we learn, that we take ourselves. It's the baby steps. It's the 1% shift. It's the noticing. It's the paying attention. It's the, okay, yes or no. Come on, guys, yes or no. And like really asking all of your parts and like paying attention to like, okay, is this mine or not? Is this for me or not? And
Right.
sometimes not knowing and just making a decision and be willing to learn from whatever it is you made the decision around, as long as you're
Absolutely.
willing to pay attention.
Right.
Right. And I think that that's really, any of us who have any kind of success at all, it's because we were guessing half the fucking time.
Yeah.
We're guessing,
Well, I mean,
right?
and we're
We're
allowed
like
to make
making, we're
mistakes.
hedging bets.
Yes.
Yeah, it's all big science project, right? I think that if I do this, this will happen. It either does or doesn't, but either way, I have some data.
Right. Right. So how long from the time you had your first realization that you needed to pay attention and make some different choices, how long from that point before you started exploring and information gathering, or listening to people or seeking out advice from people? How long was it before you made that step? And what was that step? What did it look like for you?
I think it started right away. Technically, I think that me seeking my search for my truth, for my purpose, for my likes, my dislikes started right away, for what I wanted to believe was true. Right, what do I believe is true? And I think that that was the first step, is and trying to decide what my beliefs were. And so of course that started that with that Bible in the church, and I was so grateful for the Christian religion at that time in my life, because it gave me a way to forgive myself. It gave
Right.
me a way to connect to a higher power, to a higher source. It gave me a name to talk to. It gave me names to talk to. It gave me names to talk about. It gave me stories. It gave me examples of. And some of it I liked, some of it I didn't like, some of it I wanted to hold on to, some of it I didn't. And the reason I don't call myself a Christian is because there are things that I don't agree with, right? There are
Right.
things that I don't identify with in that quote unquote religion.
Okay.
And so, but I absolutely have grown as a result of not having the knowledge of it.
Yes.
Right. And
Right.
the same goes for other religions that I've experienced with, and have experience with. And I think for me, it started at the church. It started in the meeting rooms, like, because I'd already been to meetings at that point. I got sober, clean and sober, from 18 to 22. I got arrested at 18, went through a Prop 36 program in California. And then I met a guy. We were in a relationship 4 years, clean and sober, AA, sponsees, all the things, and working the steps, having this, like I said, I had a sponsor too. And I had my groups and was always of service, but I still had no idea who the fuck I was,
Right.
what I needed. And everybody just told me I had to do these things or I was going to die. Well, almost died anyway, because I went back out because I had no idea how to really, really cope and deal, and who, like, right, like how to set boundaries and how to not be codependent, because all I did was feed my codependency. And there was absolutely amazing people that I've met in the rooms of all the anonymous programs. But, as far as a generalization goes, like I needed more.
Hmm.
I needed more than the rooms. And so when that ended up, I 100% admit that I had no coping skills. And so I was the one who went back out, and I went back out hard. And so then from that time, I had already had some kind of a base, but I knew that it wasn't enough, and almost resented it a little bit at that time. And I'm grateful for it now, but still not in alignment.
Yeah.
And so the church, I would say, in multiple different denominations. And then I would say, because I would try everything, because I was in jail still, right? I was in prison
Right.
for a year and a half after this, right? So I'm doing all the different things. They had a substance abuse program in prison, so I was in that. And once I got clean, I actually like started to listen and pay attention. And the last few months I was there. And then I went into the rehab, and in like all that time during prison, I was reading. And the reason I wrote my book was because of hearing, if there's a book that you want to read and you can't find it, you need to write it.
Yes. Wow.
Right. And I tell my clients that if there's a course that you want to take or that you think needs to be out there and you can't find it, you need to create it. Right. If there's like, whatever it is, right. If you know that this story needs to be told, you need to tell it. And so I think that really, I've always been a reader. Even as a kid, I loved reading. And I think that is the only reason why I was able to write something that people are actually enjoying reading, because I know what I enjoyed reading. I know
Right.
how I have taken pieces of so many different books from so many different mentors, from so many different coaches, from so many different, you know, authors and experts in different fields. And when it's digestible,
Mm.
right, and I can like read it over and over and over and over in this like right, that's what has always stuck with me. Like the Four Agreements is one of my favorite books. Again, another type of religion, another type of spirituality, but 100% something I could identify with, and was like, it saved me. I read that book probably half a dozen times while I was locked up, and had it halfway memorized by the time I got out. And that's been 13 years ago now, 12, 13 years. So obviously it's a little rough now, but those are the kinds of things that stuck with me. And I think that that's true and will continue to be true, is that we're always growing. We're always taking pieces of everybody that we meet along the way, good or bad, and we get to
Right.
decide what that is. And so it would definitely, I would say that started, you know, 13 years ago, or yeah, at least 13 years ago.
Mhm. And who are some of the people that you listened to and followed their advice to strengthen that resolving yourself and keep that connection and grow it?
I'm trying to think of, I have a whole bookshelf over there and I'm trying to think of different names, but I can't remember. I'm really bad with, you would think as an author that I would make it a point to remember, but it's the same with, I can sing you a whole song, have no clue who the singer is.
I do the
But
same kind of stuff.
infinite possibilities, infinite possibilities. Obviously, what's another one? The Course of Miracles. I read a couple different books. I did the Course of Miracles, but then I read a couple different books. I think Gabby Bernstein did one, and someone else did one where they kind of talk about their experience reading the Course of Miracles and what came up for them and what they learned from it. So I read a couple books around that. Again, the Secret, the Four Agreements. I'm trying to think of ones that really stood out to me the most. Eckhart Tolle. I can't do his podcast, bless his, or audiobooks, bless his heart, but
Yeah.
I love reading his books because they speak to that piece inside of me that is eloquent, that is deep, that does want to hear it spoken in that way. But I also know that I feel like I have a responsibility to take that kind of work and translate it into something we can all digest and understand,
Right.
because it can tend to be very heavy and very, very, I don't know, psychological,
Oh, it is
I think is the
psychological.
word I'm looking for.
Yeah,
I
without
mean, but what's the word I'm looking for? Like, just complicated. It can get complicated and deep. And if you're not connected on that level and you're not
yeah.
able to like kind of drift into the realm of like, I don't know how to explain it, but I think that some books
No.
are harder to read than others.
Oh, they absolutely are. One of the worst books I ever tried to, well, I shouldn't say it's the worst book, but it was hard for me to
Right.
understand is White Oleander. And
Okay.
I love reading too, and that's not a spiritual book at all. And I read it years and years ago before I even started my real spiritual journey myself. But yeah, I couldn't get through it. So I get what you mean, because I like books that are easy to read and they, like cause some kind of emotion one way or the other. And like you can get lost in them. I feel like good
Right.
writers, like they bring you into the story. You're not just reading the story, but you're part of it. And that to me, that's the best kind of reading. So
Well, then I'm excited for you to read my book because I think that you'll enjoy it. I definitely had fun creating the scenarios and like telling the story. And I love storytelling. So I had a lot of fun with being able to put some of the stories in there. And I had to really be careful. It was that, I think it was one of the hardest parts about writing it, was figuring out not only which stories to tell to support my evidence, right? Because the whole book, right? The book is called Resilience, a Different Kind of Strong. It's about my freedom framework. It's about lifestyle recovery and like what we use the framework for the freedom framework, right? The 6 different parts. So that's the six different parts in the book. And so for each part, I really wanted a couple of 1 or 2 stories to be able to get you to understand and like make it make sense of why connection is the first piece, right?
Right.
Because and that's kind of what I shared with you today, right? Because I was so disconnected, and these are examples of how disconnected I was, and these are the stories that go with that, right? And why it was so important for me to start paying attention. Like even later on in my recovery journey, when I was competing on fitness stages, right? Yeah, okay, fitness saved my life, but then it almost killed me, right? I was walking around at like 10% body fat, constantly pinching my skin to see if I gained any body fat. And it was just skin, for Christ's sake, for crying out loud, and wearing corsets to pinch in my ribs to give me that hourglass frame. And I could barely breathe. And I hadn't had a cycle in 3 years, and my kidneys were shutting down from too much protein. And it's like, people were coming up to me going, "Oh my God, I want to look like you. I want to be healthy." And I'm like, okay, you have to pick one, because you can't have both. Because
Right.
what I'm doing is not healthy. And if you want to look like me, which you'll never look like me because you're going to look like you, right?
Right.
Like that's the first
Exactly.
part that really gets in everybody's head. Oh, how do I get those abs? And I'm like, carve your muscles to look like them. I don't know. Like ask a surgeon. Like those aren't your genetics. These are your genetics. These are your abs. So
Yes.
you can either like, grow them and make them more pronounced, or we can like reduce them down so you don't see how awkward your 6 pack is. I don't know what to tell you. And it was just interesting that like the way that it went from something that I had gotten into for mental health and for physiological health and for sanity, right? To connect with my highest self during the process of became so disconnected from the reason I started, became absolutely about just physical and what I look like and how I look compared to someone else who doesn't have my body, who has whatever, right? Is their body better?
Right.
Is it worse? Like, what's a good body? Like, according to who? And
Right.
that's what I started, according to who? Like these judges that are up there that haven't seen the gym in, a year, and
Ah,
like eat McDonald's, like, you know what I mean? Like, and they're sitting there
yes.
judging these people who have killed themselves for God knows how long to look like this.
Yeah.
It's just for what? And so that was a moment for me. And I quit working out, quit eating clean, because I was on stage. It's in the book. That's how I opened the book up, is I'm on stage under these bright lights and I'm competing with a woman who's, got 15 years on me or something, 20 years on me. And her skin is sagging, and she's got, you can see her PED injection marks on her hips from, that's performance enhancing drugs, right? Steroid shots. and, and I'm just going, for what? For a
Right.
plastic trophy? For the chance to compete? For the chance to compete for some money? Like, what professional title doesn't come with a paycheck?
Right.
Bodybuilding. You know what I mean? Like, you have to compete and be in the top of the top of the top to get any kind of money for this. Right. And for what? To be unhealthy, to be miserable, to never see my friends, to spend my life in the gym, to barely have any balance whatsoever. And so when I got away from that, of course, I went the opposite direction again. The pendulum swings the other way. And, I really had to start taking a look at who I was being again and start paying attention. Like, this ain't it either, Jen. Like, come on, what's going on? And that's when I saw an ad for Health Coach Institute. And this is not a promo. This is just what happened. Facebook knows
Right.
all, and they know what I was searching, right? Like, how do I teach my clients how to, be outside the gym? Right. It's kind of what I was like looking for. And I came across a 6-month program and I joined it, and it was the best thing I ever did. And I continued my education since then and have continued it since then. That was in February of 18. And so I would say that's when the coaching journey really started for me. Because although I was a coach and I was a fitness coach and I was a personal trainer and I was helping people with their nutrition and changing their physical bodies, I wanted to change their psyche. Right.
Right.
I wanted to change what they believed to be true about the world and how they identified in it. Because how they were trying to identify with it, and it was not working. And
Right.
yeah, sure, they showed up for an hour in my face and went all out. And then they left and turned right back into the person they were before they walked in that door.
Yeah.
All the old
Because,
beliefs, all the old identity, all the old stuff, because
right.
life is in
Because if you
session.
don't fix this, then the rest of it doesn't follow, you know?
Yeah, I think that's on my Jen Henry Life Coach page on Facebook. Like, I think that's my business page. On the background, it says you can like eat all the kale, you can do all the workouts and all the yoga, but if you don't even deal with the shit that's going on inside of your head, you're still fucked.
Yeah.
I'm paraphrasing, obviously,
Yeah.
but
No,
close
I love
enough,
it. It's
right?
so true. It is so true. And it's in every aspect of life. You know, the subject of age seems to be like really prevalent in my world right now. And it's the same thing with that. And I just said to my neighbor yesterday, who is 86, by the way, she's amazing. I love her. But we all age and we all have to age. As long as we keep staying alive, we're going to be aging, but we do not have to get old. That's right here. You know, like
It's
I'm
true.
54. I just turned 54 this month and I do not feel 54. I don't act 54. I look at how old my kids are and I think, holy crap, who's their mom? Because like certainly I'm not old enough to have kids that age. You know what I mean? So it's just it's all right here, how we look at things in our mind. And you know, I asked you about who you like to listen to. One of my favorites is Wayne Dyer. And he will
Mhm.
always be one of my favorites because he's the one that I went to that really got me through the hardest times in my life because his voice is so gentle and soothing and it's just like wrapping a warm blanket around yourself listening to him and the things that he said. But his book, Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life, you know, and that's where it all begins. Once we change our thoughts and he also said, change the way you look at things and the things you look at change. And those two things like man, they've been so impactful for me. And it all starts right here, like what you said, connect, get back to that connection, take a look at your beliefs.
I
And
love Wayne Dyer.
yeah, he's amazing.
I
Oh
can't
my
believe I've
gosh.
like there's so many that I'm not doing anyone justice because it's of course if you're asking me to think right here on the spot, like it's gonna literally just have a blank etch a sketch screen.
Yep.
Anything that was there is shaken off now. But yeah, definitely there he's one. God, there's it's gonna make me crazy because I'm gonna be listening to this later and just spout them off like as I'm listening to this, but it's okay. But there are there's so many people that are I mean, of course, like old school Tony Robbins, right? Old school Tony Robbins, like really, like for me, I like that aggressiveness, right? Like I need someone who is passionate and like in your face and like talking past all the naysayers that are trying to get between you and whoever is trying to share their message because mine are loud, they are assholes, they are street, they are like in your face. Like, who do you think, like, what do you know about us?
Yeah.
Right. And when I say at my parts, like, you know, I do parts work with my clients, I do parts work with my coaches. And it's like there are so all the different parts of us that are have ever existed up until this, you know, day in our life. There are different versions of us.
Yeah.
And whether we like it or not, they are all still there. They all still have an opinion. They all still have a say on the decisions that you're making on a daily basis. And all of this self-sabotage we talk about, it should be like self-sabotage because like right? The parts that you're obviously not paying attention to one of your parts that needs attention.
Yeah.
You're obviously trying to shut it out like it doesn't exist, and it's gonna show up and get in your face. I
Yes.
promise.
Oh, I just
One
had
way
that
or
happen just
another.
a couple
If
of days
there's
ago,
something that
actually.
you're hungry, oh, tell me.
So I was like trying to, and I actually just told my friend about it today. So you know, you don't realize sometimes what your hangups are. And I've been in some pretty bad relationships and I've been with Steve for we've lived together for almost 3 years now. And we bought a house together and we've been here since April. So it hasn't been a real long time. And because this is our property, we get to fix it up how we want to, right? And but I haven't been motivated at all, like really to get out and make the flower beds. And I love stuff like that. I love gardening. I love flowers. I love vegetable gardening. I love creating things. I'm a very creative person. And I mean, I've gotten out and done some stuff, but I just haven't felt really drawn and motivated to get out and work in the yard, you know, and actually I haven't really been feeling very drawn to get outside much at all. And I was thinking about that. It just kind of smacked me in the face one day and was like, you've been spending an awful lot of time inside. Like, you know, it's starting to cool down now and everything here. And because we're in Central Florida. And what are you doing? Like, why? Why are you inside? Why aren't you outside doing anything that you know you love doing this stuff? Why aren't you doing it? And so I got to thinking about that and why am I not getting out there? And then it came to me that every single time I have done that, every single time in the history of my past that I've gotten out and made beautiful flower beds and done all this work and made things nice, I've had to leave that place. And all of that work that I did, someone else got to enjoy because I was gone. I had to go, you know? And I was like, holy crap. So, I went and talked to Steve about it because, I want to share things, with my partner because it's the first healthy relationship I've been in. And it's absolutely incredible. And it's incredible because we do share things like that with each other. But yeah, it was a real eye-opening moment for me to realize that that past version of myself was going, hey, you know,
I love it. Like, this is the kind of self-awareness that like gives me life because it sometimes it starts happening right away with the people I work with, right? But it doesn't always, and it takes time to like kind of dig around. And we have sessions around getting to know the different parts and like letting them have a voice and like what they need and want and where they're coming from and their perspective and everything like that. Because it's like then you recognize it. You
yeah,
knew exactly, right? You've done this work, so you know, right? And regardless of how you've done it and what it's looked like for you, the work is the work, right? The
the
digging
work
is the
is the
digging,
work.
the healing is the healing,
Yeah,
right? The acknowledgments, the deciding of what the beliefs are from this and how to shift them. And the fact that you're able to just kind of reach in and notice, like, hey, there's obviously a reason I'm not just lazy,
right,
right? I'm not just lazy. I don't identify with that. I can be lazy at times, but this is not that because I love doing this. So what is keeping me from doing this?
right.
What's the point? You'll hear those things, right? Those
Yeah.
little like thoughts, like, well, what's the point? And where's that coming from? And give that voice, give that part a microphone, right? Give it a voice, let
Yes,
it share. And you did. And it was like, well, what's the point? Because we're going to leave anyway, right? And then you get to sit. And like, so I invite anyone who's like wants to dive in with this, right? If you are wanting to try parts work, it is something you can do on your own. It is something that I say be careful with, but you can do it on your own. And what I would do is I would close my eyes and I would get grounded. I would make sure my feet were planted and that I was completely comfortable, that I was able to not be disturbed for a little while. And I have to have music going on in the background sometimes I don't. I just need noise in the background because otherwise my brain just likes to trail. And I will sit there and I will imagine what this space looks like where I'm going to be gathering all my parts. For me, it's a conference room in my building that I have that's designed in the way that I want it designed. And so when I walk in, I'm greeted at the front desk. And I imagine walking in and being greeted at the front desk and walking up my staircase and like seeing the glass walls of the conference room and walking into the conference room. And as I start to get closer, I can hear the chatter and I can hear the noise of all the different parts arguing about whatever the heck is going on and what's wanted and what's not wanted and all of that. And as I walk in, I get to quiet them. I get to sit them down and let them know that each one of them will be heard that needs to be heard. But right now, I am the CEO of my own life. Right. And right now, this present version of me is the one that is absolutely in control. And so I will let each one of my parts be heard, and give each one of them space, but who's first, like what's coming up, and I'll sit and I'll listen. And of course it looks a little different when I'm actually sitting there in my mind's eye and doing this work, but I sit there and I look at the 17-year-old version of myself who is literally at the like on the verge of death, and I let her have her say, because there were times when I ignored her, when I wish she hadn't existed, when I tried to deny her. And I'll tell you this funny story. When I was working with a client of mine, one of my very first long-term clients, one-on-one clients, and we were doing a future poll for her. And a future poll is when you're imagining yourself that at that time, doing what you're doing at that time and seeing, right? So at least in this case, that's what it was. And I was envisioning with her. She was telling me about this. I'm in this vision with her. She's, speaking to a group of realtors, multi-million-dollar real estate or realtors. And she's in this power red suit and she's got her long blonde gray hair and she's talking. And all of a sudden, I'm in this vision with her and I see this little nasty girl running around, right? Like she's broke down, she's peed on, her hair is nappy, she's got dirt on her face, she smells like, I'm like freaking out. I'm like, get out of there. What are you doing? Get away from her, get away from her. And it was that part that was trying so hard. Now I'd been doing this work for a while, so it was natural for it to start showing up, because I'd been digging around for it,
right.
but it was showing up in my work. And so I wasn't okay with that. And so I immediately scheduled a session with my coach. We immediately started digging into that, started building a relationship with that girl. And she made me grab her hand and have her come and sit in my lap, peed on
Mhm.
and all. and
Yeah.
love her and hold her close and let her know that she was safe and let her know that she was going to be okay. And like, I think about these things, this work that I've done along the way, these last 10 years, really this work in the last 5 years. And I'm so blown away by the way that now my subconscious or my memories are contemplating, or even have like, I wonder, like, do I remember this? Like, do I remember being comforted?
Right.
Is that what got me through? Was I on that cardboard on that street in downtown LA, curled up in a ball? Like, was she really there with me?
Mm-hmm.
What kind of matrix shit is this?
I
Right?
know.
Like,
It's
because it has
crazy.
actually affected doing this work,
Mm-hmm.
going back there to myself at those times, whether it actually happened or whether now my memory feels that it did.
Mm-hmm.
I don't freaking care. I
Right.
don't care. Both of our parts share that memory. My part now feels loved, safe. Now she sees that that was what was going on, and that she doesn't have to feel alone, that she doesn't have to be scared of me making new friends or putting my face out there on a book, or, any of the things that she was scared to death of me doing. Because how dare you let us be visible? How dare you let people see
Right.
us? We've been trying to disappear our whole life.
Yes. I so relate to that. Yeah.
So it's deep work, but I mean, when you have someone that you trust or you feel safe with, that you can do this work with, if it's so freeing,
Mm-hmm.
being able to be honest with yourself about all your come froms and all your perspectives, and not trying to say, well, it shouldn't be like that. I shouldn't be
Right.
like the fuck. According to who?
Right. Who makes
According to
that
who?
rule? Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And it doesn't matter what other people think. It's so frustrating sometimes that we allow ourselves to get so caught up in what other people think and what they're dictating. I just actually had this conversation with my son the other day about who's selfish, you know? Who's selfish? The person, are you selfish because you want to do things that are right for you, even though someone else doesn't like them? Or are they selfish because they want to dictate what you do? Like, who's the selfish one? Truly, you know? And yeah, we allowing ourselves that freedom to understand that we get to do it our way, no matter how that looks to other people, is just, it's huge. It's absolutely huge. It really is. Because if you listen, I mean, just think about your journey that you've been on, all this crazy stuff that you went through. If you had listened to those naysayers in your life, if you had allowed them to keep dictating how things were supposed to look for you, where would your life be now? I mean, just think about that.
Honestly, I'd probably have some job somewhere, or, you know what I mean? It's like, and working for someone else, which I haven't done since I was 16 years old. Right. Like, I don't know. I can't even imagine what that would look like, because
Hey,
I have done it my own way for so long. But it was, it's so funny, because when you really look at it, like I say, my whole reason for doing drugs was so that I wouldn't care. And so I stopped caring. Right. And then the truth is I kept doing drugs because I kept caring too much. Right. Because whenever I would get sober, I still cared too much. I couldn't deal with what was the potential of other people not liking me or being upset with me, or any of the horrible ways I'd been, or any of the horrible things I'd done. I could not live with that. And so having to figure out how to not only be okay in my own skin, but to forgive myself, and to be able to, that took time, right? That
yeah,
took time. It took action. It took me actively living a different life than I'd been living. And I think that people want to get clean and sober and still act the same, and, or they, it's even still like, people who are dealing with food addictions, people who are dealing with sex addictions, people who are dealing with disconnection through social media and who scroll 6-7 hours a day, which happens.
yes,
It's a real thing,
it is a
right? Or
real
kids
thing.
that are gaming 10 hours at a time, 12 hours at a time. They start at 3 o'clock in the afternoon when they get home from school, and they keep going until the morning time when they're supposed to be going to school. And the parents realize it. Well, I mean, there's so many things wrong with what I just said, but like, that's happening.
Yes.
And it's like, until we can recognize that, until we can make a decision
Mm,
that we want to choose to experience life,
yes.
And I think that's what it all comes down to, is making a decision to experience life, because you're going to experience it. It's going to come with ebbs and flows. It's going to come with ups and downs. It's going to come with shitty times. It's going to come with good times, but you're never going to be able to ever feel the good times unless you feel the bad ones.
Yeah. Yeah. We don't have one without the other. And, it would be nice if we could just live in this, perfect utopian world where everything was just nothing but bliss and honey and happiness all the time. That's not the reality of our situation.
But
So
do we even really, I don't even really think we know what bliss and happiness truly was. I mean, isn't that the fable of the apple? Like, because we didn't know, right? We didn't know. We didn't have any way to gauge it.
yeah, we didn't. No,
Now we have a way to gauge it,
right.
you know? And like, I'm almost grateful for that, because I've been in a lithium high. I've been there. It was shit. It was terrible because I didn't care. That's when I really didn't care. It was nice because I didn't care, but I didn't care at all. There was
Right.
no good, but there
Yeah.
was no bad, but there was no good.
Right. That has to be
And
a
I use lithium as the example, but there's, like 7 different psych meds and antidepressants, anti-seizure, mood stabilizers, antipsychotics, right? And they're like mixing all these things together, thinking that you're gonna what are you actually accomplishing here? I mean, really,
yeah.
like, what is the
It's
actual goal here with all this? Like, I'm not sure, because none of it addressed my lifestyle.
right. And that's just it. We live in such an instant gratification society where, like, because I was in nursing, like I told you prior to our recording here. Um, and one of the big reasons I got out of nursing was because doctors do what I call throwing meds at symptoms. So people are like, well, they don't treat the bot, they don't treat the person, they don't even treat the disease. Let's get real. Most of them don't even treat the disease, much less the person. We're not getting to root causes in most cases. I'm not saying there aren't some phenomenal doctors out there that really are conscientious and going for a holistic approach. But as a whole, in Western medicine, that's not the approach. The approach is you go in for pain and you get given a pain med. You go in for high blood pressure, you get given a blood pressure med. Not one time, well, I shouldn't say not one time, but very rarely do they take a look at where's your pain coming from. Let's take a look at that and let's treat that. Let's do massage. Let's do medical massage. Let's do acupuncture. Let's do, like weight restrictions if your job warrants that, because that's where the pain is coming from, or whatever it is. That's the more holistic approach, so that you don't have to take that medication. I don't take medications anymore. I've gone totally holistic, like if I have a headache, I use peppermint oil or, massage heat. And if it doesn't go away, I do those things and then I take a nap. And when I wake up, I feel better. I hardly ever get headaches now though, because, you know, but yeah, that
Oh,
holistic
I
approach.
understand completely.
Yeah. And then you get these there's a term called polypharmacy, and that just simply means that you're on a lot of medications, which is what you were talking about. We're mixing all these medications, and then they have these crazy reactions, and then or they'll cause another thing that you need another medication to take care of. And pretty soon you're on 25 medications. And I'm here to tell you something. Doctors aren't the first line knowledgeable person to go to when you're on all these medications to ask questions. It's your pharmacist. So if you have questions about things
100%.
like
I was
this,
just gonna
that's all they do. That's all they do is meds. So call your pharmacist, talk to your pharmacist, and get, educate yourselves. This is a big thing. We are not
It's
educated.
a huge thing. This is a
Yes.
huge thing. What the saddest thing to me is that the doctors know nothing about food, ask nothing about food, right? And ask nothing about other medications. Like, they ask, but that doesn't matter, right? It's oh, we have you on this, well, let's try this. They don't look for, very rarely, like you said, do they look for conflicting prescriptions. And you'll actively, sorry, messengers, you'll actively, what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, that's a whole rabbit hole that makes me,
Yeah.
it's absolutely devastating to me that they don't even get barely a semester of nutrition, right? It's like it's a tiny little chapter on nutrition. That's all they get, right? And yet it's literally the thing that is killing our country,
Yeah. Oh, gut
right?
health
They
is
want to talk about
huge.
a pandemic. they want to talk about a pandemic. Like, I just can't. I can't. Like, that's a whole nother podcast,
It
girl, because
is.
it's like,
It is a whole
it
nother
really is.
podcast for sure.
It's a rabbit hole that we have to be super careful around when, because
Yeah.
like I mean, we're small pennies compared to like some of these guys that are out there with hundreds of thousands of views that are talking about this stuff. But the truth is out there. As
It
hard
is.
as they try to keep it from the general public, the truth is out there. And if you start looking and you start reading and you start paying attention, it's not all conspiracies, guys. It's about the dollar. Like, it's about the dollar. So the only thing I can really say to keep me off a tangent is every single day you are voting with your dollar. Every single penny that you spend is either supporting something.
Yes. That's a
Every single
fact.
penny that you spend is supporting something. So just start paying attention to what that is, right? If Because pretty much it's pretty difficult these days to not support like the 2, 3 big companies that own everything.
Mhm.
But it is possible,
Yes.
and so just start paying attention. I think that that's the theme.
Yeah. And educate yourselves. Pay attention and educate
Educate
yourselves
yourself.
because there's so much information out there. The information is readily available if we want it. We just need to go get it. And don't look to the
It's hard not to rabbit hole though, right? And I think that the people look to, like, I wish people wouldn't follow like so many thousands of people and like get everyone's opinion on everything, but like there,
right.
like find someone that you trust and you trust their research abilities, and like listen to like as many, it's so contradicting, right? Because I want to say listen to as many different perspectives, but at the same time, like follow the science. Like, and I don't even feel safe saying that anymore because
Yeah.
the media has twisted the word science.
Yes.
But it's like
Mainstream
follow the
media. That was the
experience of
term I was looking
like
for.
people are telling real stories out there about what's going
Yes.
on, having real examples of like I was on all these medications and had all these chronic illnesses and my body was like breaking down on me, to I started eating clean foods that I know where they're sourced from, nothing boxed, nothing bagged, and I started eliminating all the extra sugars that I've been taking in. I started getting more rest and drinking more water, and I started working out and actually like working out, like actually making my body sweat, actually making my muscles sore. And like now I'm off all my meds, right? Now I'm off all my diabetes medications. Now I'm, except unless you're type 1, right? And now I'm like off my hypertension medication. I'm like telling story. These are real life stories about people who actually took their health into their lives back into their own hands and took back their control. And I get it. Some people have let it go so far that now it's an autoimmune issue, or right. And but even autoimmune issues, when you start
Yes.
actually taking care of your body and giving your body what it needs, when you start healing your gut and you start balancing your microbiome in your gut, right? And feeding your body stuff that it knows what to do with, and instinctively knows what to do with food that is grown or killed.
Right.
Just saying, right?
Right.
Whether it's chopped down or chopped up, it knows what to do with those foods, right? We
Right.
are omnivores. Feed your body good quality animal protein, please. And like, I don't care, like if you're vegan for the animals, cool. I get it. But your brain needs amino acids, like quality amino acids. And if you're not going to eat meat, then I need you to supplement. And I'm talking not, you're not, because you're not going to get your quality proteins from your uh veggies. You're not like, you're not, like find a way to get some good quality proteins in through supplementation, because your brains need it. And I need your guys' brains to function because I have to deal with you, right? Like we have to deal with you in society. And like when you go bat shit off, when you start falling apart because you're going down this trail of like, I think it's important for us to try and curate this information for our people. I think that's my entire point. There is so much information out there that it's easy to get lost in the mud. It's easy to start going, you know, off the deep end, like I could easily. But when it comes down to it, there's some basic stuff, right? Move your body on purpose and make it sweat. Make it sweat. And I'm talking like get your heart rate up, make it sweat, make it hard to breathe, where you have to catch your breath, right? And do that
Yeah.
regularly.
Right.
Eat foods where you are sourced from like real, from the planet, right? Like from the
Yeah.
ground, and things that have eaten something from the ground, right? And get some rest. Put your
Yeah.
phones down, get away from your freaking phones at the
Oh my
last
gosh.
hour before you go to bed. Go to sleep, right?
Yeah.
Go to sleep. Like I
Yeah.
know that for some people insomnia is a real thing, and I get that. Talk to your doctor. Sometimes they will help you. I am not against pharmaceuticals. I'm not against
But
pharmaceuticals
you know what?
when
I'm
there's a time and a
into
place.
a lot of I do essential oils, and there are
I do
so
essential oils
many
too.
things that will help you sleep that are natural. And I'm not talking about
100%.
a bottle of melatonin. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm
Right.
talking about other things that will help you sleep that are natural. There are so many essential oils for that, and some of them even come in gel caps so that if you don't like the smell of them or taste of them or whatever, you can take a gel cap. The stuff is
And there are
available.
tons of supplements.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
there are tons of
Yeah.
supplements too. There are absolutely plenty of ways to go about it. But if you're like, if right now you're not into any holistic stuff and you are just needing to rest, like more important than anything else, your body needs rest. That is more
Yes.
important than anything else, than trying to keep your body toxin free, than all of that. Like when it comes down to sanity and true mental health, you need to sleep by whatever
Yes.
means necessary. And that comes first, really. And then from there, like then you start to look for things that are healthier. Then you start to wean yourself off and like go through a little detox period where you might not get as much sleep, but you're working now from a place of being rested and making these decisions, right? It's like first we got to fill the cup, like in whatever means necessary. That means if all we can do is walk down the block and back every day, then that's what we start doing. If
Right.
all we can do is start to get in 3 real meals a day, regardless of whatever the heck else is going on, with whether or not you're eating donuts or cookies or whether or not you're, we want to get in at least 3 small meals a day of healthy food so our body's getting the stuff we need, right? Hydrate, get your water in,
Hydrate.
right?
Absolutely.
Hydrate. And I feel like, and breathe, right? Taking actual time to breathe. Like that is one of the things
Yes.
that has saved me. Fitness, like movement, all these things, right? These are the basics. And I think we get as a species so far away from these being a priority in our life when it is the priority for life,
Absolutely. It
you
is.
know?
And it doesn't have to
We
be
want all these
pretty. It
gimmicks and
doesn't have
fad
to.
diets and all this stuff. And
Oh, I'm not into diets at all. Like, yeah, I don't believe in dieting. Portion control. Eat it, but don't eat the whole thing. And I feel like
well,
as we grow our self-love and our self-worth and we learn to reconnect, that naturally trends towards healthier choices. It just naturally goes in that direction. And you don't even have to think about it. You don't have to go, oh, well, I'm going to purposely have this number of glasses of water today. You just naturally go get water. You realize
and
that
you're
you've got to
realizing because
drink.
you're paying attention that you're
Yes.
thirsty, right? When
Yes.
you're connected and you're in the moment and you're paying attention to what's going on, you'll recognize, oh, that's thirst, right? And in the beginning, Mike, it's difficult. Like you don't know if it's hunger, you don't know if it's thirst, and you go and you stand there and you open the fridge and you just stare. Sometimes it's not food or water that you're needing; it's something else that you're hungry for in your life, right?
Yes.
But when we're first so disconnected, we don't know how to identify that. So start with grabbing some water. If you're like, I don't know what I need, but I need something, drink some water.
Drink
That'll
some
check
water.
something off the list,
Yeah.
right? Think about when was the last time I ate something. If it was within the last couple hours, like I'm probably good. If it wasn't within the last couple hours, probably time to eat something. Check that off. Okay, is that good? Like, what else is going on here? What do I need? Like, when was the last time I called a friend? When was the last time I laughed about something? When was the last time I went out and did some gardening? When was the last time? And think about things that used to bring you joy or have brought you joy in the
Yeah.
past, right? And like maybe that's something that's missing and that you're hungry for. It's just, again, getting curious and asking yourself, like, okay, what is this? Okay, what is this?
Yeah.
Right? And starting to pay attention. Really, it is how we evolve.
Yeah. It really is. That's so good. I love it. Tell us the name of your book again.
Resilience, a different kind of strong. I think
Okay.
I had it right
Awesome.
here. I did.
Let me
Yeah. So this is the book. Big old fat head on there.
Nice. Oh, you're beautiful. So, yeah, I love it. And tell us where we can find your book.
You can find it anywhere books are sold. So it actually is on Amazon. It's on Goodreads. We're actually doing a Goodreads giveaway right now until October 3rd. So that's up and running right now. We're going to be giving away 100 free ebooks. So I thought that was pretty cool. And you can find it. There's hardcover, paperback, and Kindle versions on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and like I said, anywhere books are sold. So
That's great. So y'all look out for her book and get it and read it. It's all her story, right? It's your whole story, right? In there.
it is.
That's awesome.
There's the pieces of the story that led to creating this framework and the work that I do in this world. Yeah.
Nice. And if someone wants to have you as their coach, where will they find you?
So you can find me on the website that I have up for the book portal, which is unleashingresilience.com. And if you want to access that book portal, you can absolutely go in to the website on that page, the book portal page, and sign up that way. It does have access to a free membership where you can see all of the worksheets that are mentioned in the book. There's right now, I think 3 videos already up, and we're continuously adding more. But there's videos around breathing, around stretching and movement, and around mirror work, I think are the 3 that are up right now. Again, in every worksheet that went along with the pause and reflect sections in my book, because there are moments where I will share an epiphany or a story and an experience and the lessons from that, and then ask you to pause and think about what is it has this ever happened to you? Can you identify with this? How would you do this differently in the future? Or what would you put in place? Different questions that help you identify where it is that you can make a shift in your own life and maybe some action steps around how to do that. And so I really wanted to create a space where it wasn't just this book you read where you got some great tips or resources or tools, but where you actually had a place to go and find resources. And it was, as we start updating the website, it'll have all the master classes on it that I do for free that you can join, and you can definitely just start to experience us there. If you're on Facebook, I do have a private Facebook community called Lifestyle Recovery Solutions. And so there are a few questions you need to ask or answer in order to join that group. But I also go live in there and have master classes and webinars in there as well. So lots of different ways to connect with me. But those 2 are probably the easiest.
Okay, perfect. And I'm going to
Way
get
to,
those links
at
from you
least
and
the
I'll
easiest.
put them all down in the description box for our
Perfect.
viewers. Awesome. So thank you so much for coming on and being my guest today. To all of our viewers, thank you for joining this episode of Eternal Evolution of Self. Please like, share, and subscribe, and let anyone who you feel like may benefit from this information know about this episode today, because I feel like it's really important for us to keep sharing and causing that ripple effect of help and encouragement and upliftment and enlightenment across the globe. So like, share, and subscribe. And as always, I love you all.